September 22nd, 2012. It was a cool spring night in Melbourne. 29-year-old Jill Meagher left a bar in the city's north after meeting friends for drinks. She began the short walk home to the apartment she shared with her husband. It was a route she had taken before. CCTV cameras captured her final known movements, walking down Sydney Road and briefly speaking with a man outside a bridal shop. By the next morning, she was missing. Within days, her disappearance would grip not just Melbourne, but all of Australia, sparking one of the most high-profile criminal investigations in the country's history and igniting national debate about parole laws and community safety. This is the story of Jill Meagher. Grab your coffee because today we're serving crime. This is Coffee and Crime AU, where Australia's darkest cases meet your morning brew. I'm Linda, and each week we dive into real investigations, timelines, and the details that don't sit right. Sip slow, this one's heavy. Jill Meagher was born in Ireland and later moved to Australia, settling in Melbourne with her husband Tom in 2009. She worked for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, commonly known as the ABC, in an administrative role. Colleagues described her as warm, intelligent, and deeply kind. She was someone who built strong friendships and brought people together. In 2012, Jill and Tom were living in Brunswick, an inner northern suburb known for its live music, cafes, and tight-knit community feel. It was an area where people felt comfortable walking home at night. On Friday, September the 21st, Jill met friends at a local bar after work. It was a normal evening. Drinks, conversation, and laughter. Nothing about the night seemed unusual. Just after midnight, she said goodbye to her friends and began the short walk home, roughly 800 metres away. It should have taken about 10 minutes. She never made it. CCTV footage later reconstructed Jill's final known movements. She was seen walking along Sydney Road in Brunswick at around 1:30 a.m. The footage showed her passing shops and storefronts illuminated by streetlights. Outside a bridal shop, she encountered a man. The cameras captured a brief interaction, a conversation lasting several minutes. Jill appeared calm. There was no obvious sign of distress in the footage that was publicly released. After that moment, she continued walking. That was the last confirmed sighting of her alive. When Jill didn't arrive home, her husband Tom became concerned, and by the next morning when she still hadn't returned or made contact, alarm bells were ringing. She was officially reported missing. At first it was treated as a missing person case, but as hours passed and evidence began to emerge, investigators feared something far more serious had occurred. Victorian police launched a large-scale investigation almost immediately. One of the pivotal decisions made early on was to release CCTV images of the man seen speaking with Jill. Police hoped somebody would recognise him. The public response was extraordinary. Thousands of people shared the footage online. Social media amplified the images rapidly. The case dominated national news coverage, while community members organised search parties and placed posters across Melbourne. There was a collective sense of urgency and fear. Within days, tips began flowing in. Those tips led police to Adrian Bayley. Bayley had a serious criminal history, including violent offences. Investigators identified him as the man who was seen in the CCTV footage. He was arrested on September 27, 2012. Soon after, police charged him with Jill Meagher's murder. Authorities alleged that after the encounter on Sydney Road, Bayley assaulted Jill and transported her away from the area. Her body was later located in a shallow grave in Gisborne South, outside Melbourne. The discovery confirmed the worst fears of her family, friends, and the wider community. Melbourne was in shock. In 2013, Adrian Bayley pleaded guilty to rape and murder. The guilty plea meant Jill's family was spared a lengthy trial, but the court proceedings still revealed deeply confronting details about the crime. The Victorian Supreme Court sentenced Bayley to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The sentencing reflected both the severity of the crime and Bayley's extensive criminal record. But the case did not end there. Public anger intensified when it emerged that Bayley had previously been released on parole despite a history of violent offending. Many questioned how someone with such a record had been free at all. The case sparked nationwide debate about parole laws, risk assessment of repeat offenders, monitoring of violent criminals, and women's safety in public areas. In Victoria, the case contributed to significant reforms of the parole system, including strict oversight and changes to how high-risk offenders are assessed before release. For many Australians, Jill's case became a turning point, a tragic catalyst for legislative change. In the days following Jill's disappearance, thousands gathered for vigils across Melbourne. One of the most powerful moments came during a large public gathering in Brunswick. People filled the streets, holding candles, standing in silence, and showing solidarity with Jill's family. It wasn't just grief, it was a collective outrage and a collective sorrow. Many women spoke openly about their own experiences of harassment or fear while walking alone at night. The case triggered difficult but necessary conversations about gendered violence and community responsibility. At the same time, Jill's family consistently emphasised remembrance over anger. They spoke about who she was, not only how she died. Her life, not just her death. More than a decade later, Jill Meagher's name is still remembered in Melbourne and across Australia. Annual memorial walks and vigils have honoured her memory. Advocacy around women's safety and legal reform continues to reference the impact of her case. Her story became a broader national reckoning about violence against women. While no law change can undo what happened, her case undeniably reshaped conversations around criminal justice and parole reform in Victoria. It also highlighted the power of community response, how quickly people mobilised, shared information and supported one another during a crisis. Jill is remembered by friends and family as vibrant, intelligent and compassionate, a woman with plans, dreams and a life that mattered deeply. And that's how she should be remembered. Jill Meagher's tragic death shocked Melbourne and all of Australia. It forced difficult questions about public safety, parole laws, and how society manages repeat violent offenders. More than anything, it reminds us how quickly an ordinary night can change lives forever. What are your thoughts on parole reforms that followed her case? Please keep the discussion respectful. If you'd like more Australian true crimes told carefully, factually, and with respect for victims and families, consider subscribing. And as always, thank you for listening. Thanks for listening to Coffee and Crime AU. If you found this case interesting, follow the podcast and share it. It really helps the show to grow. And remember, sometimes the smallest detail can change everything.